This episode is brought to you by Fond Recollections. Cherish the fond memories of your loved ones with their interactive living obituary.
He worked so hard to ensure we had a great life, but now he's gone. We miss him so much. One day our granddaughter won't remember him, or how wonderful he was. Fond Recollections offers us a chance to remember him when he was young and full of life. With Fond Recollections memorial plaques and website, we could upload all our photos and videos of him.
Visit fondrecollection.com today and cherish the happy memories of your loved ones.
Chapter 11. The Bitter Truth. His relatives continued to laugh at Thomas and his naivete and left Thomas standing speechless for a good minute before Mark finally spoke. "Come on, son, really? Where do you think all this money came from?" As he pointed to the expensive art collection hanging from his office's walls. "Hell, fuck this community, son. We couldn't care less about these niggers," stated Mark with an unbothered look on his face. Thomas, who had been out of the loop for far too long, could not believe what he was hearing. Then again, he had always had his doubts about his family's affiliations and his source of income, but he had never imagined that it would be this bad in a million years. "Let me tell you a little story about our funeral home business, son," said Mark to a silent and discontented Thomas. In the late 1960s, our family moved to this community because of the high population of colored individuals in it. We've always known that it was a matter of time before they start killing each other, said Mark as he pointed out into the casket area. But back then, things were different. And turns out, this was the worst possible place for us to set up a business. In the past, all that black power and unity shit was all the rage. They all went to the same schools, lived in clean neighborhoods, stuck together, and even spent their damn money on black-owned businesses, said Mark as he got up from his seat and began pulling out some files from his bookshelf. See, that wasn't good for business, and so all the niggers went to the Johnson family's funeral home, and I had a business that was on the brink of collapse while raising a daughter who was in college. That is when I was approached by the FBI to help them get these niggers back under control, said Mark as he began tossing classified files relating to the intentionally perpetrated crimes of the FBI toward the African American community in the 1960s. These files showed gruesome pictures of abuse and evidence of manipulation, and the worst part about it was that all of it was known by those who, by the looks of it, maintained law and order of this little southern town. Thomas, who had finally lost faith, listened in silence as Mark continued speaking. "The FBI told me about their plans for America, the danger niggers pose to the fabric of our society. Therefore, naturally, I listened to their plan and became inspired."
Which I'm sure will inspire you too, honey,
said Mary with a smile on her face. "The good man over at the FBI explained to me how they were going to infiltrate the school system and divide the niggers. This plan would drop all that black unity shit by introducing Freemason lounges to make some niggers think they were better than others," said Mark as he pointed to the picture of himself and the Reverend toasting their champagne glasses and laughing. "Finally, we introduced hard and extremely addictive narcotics into the black community to weaken them and especially their leaders," said Mark as he pointed to an old African-American man giving a speech on the podium of the Johnson family's funeral home. "The Johnsons were prospering while I laid in the dirt. I could not let that happen, not for your sake," stated Mark as he pointed at Mary and Thomas. "So I did what any smart individual would have done. I hired two men that helped me build this empire, Reverend Albright and his friend Bells. Two niggers willing to be bought by a white man. These two men helped me take care of the Johnson family's funeral home and helped me distribute the drugs," continued Mark as he showed Thomas the picture of Johnson family's funeral home burnt to the ground. "And as you know, everything went as planned. President Nixon declared a war on drugs to stop the hippies and niggers from voting and affecting the outcome of his presidential election, and voila, a generation of nigger male was put behind bars for decades. This ensured that the blacks wouldn't be a threat to America for generations," said Mark as he pointed to the pictures of jail cells filled with African American males. "Now, our job was to make sure the drugs were always available to them and to get rid of their bodies. So you see, transporting the drugs in the burial caskets is a great idea. We make money off the drugs, and niggers die during the process. We charge them for the burial and give them more drugs to sell after the funeral service. Now that is what I call God's plan. A plan to keep the white man the master of these fucking monkeys," boasted Mark as he laid back into the chair and looked at Thomas without any remorse. Thomas had had enough. He had listened to the whole thing quietly and was ready to erupt with anger. "What the actual fuck, Mother? You knew about this shit?" asked Thomas angrily.
Honey, I see nothing wrong with making sure the natural order of things is maintained. You do not know anything about those times. They were much safer for white women. Niggers back then were always ready to rape and kill you. Some of them even started walking around with their noses in the air, thinking that they were equal or even better than us,
said Mary as she laughed sarcastically with Mark. They started going to them nigger colleges and asking for the same jobs as hard-working white folk. They were terrible times, honey. Daddy did the right thing by helping the government putting these niggers in their place. She too leaned back in her chair as if nothing she had just said bothered her in the slightest. Damn right. I hate those niggers with the stuck-up attitude the most, especially Satanist Jesse Jackson when he ran for president of the United States of America. That gave the niggers more reasons to act like fools, shooting and yelling on election night, making the former FBI director Hoover turn over in his damn grave, said Mark as he pointed to his Confederate flag tucked away in his office closet. Finally, Mr. David Duke had the idea of putting things back into order, and those niggas had the gall to think we feared them, said Mark as he chuckled along with Mary. Those lazy motherfuckers with their ugly ass kids. Hell, all the niggas in this community named Williams was owned by our family. We made them niggas go through a hard day's work, and now look at them. Sitting around waiting for a damn government check, making us, their rightful masters, do all the work? It just isn't right, said Mark as he took a sip of his beer and leaned back into his chair. So, you hate all blacks? I saw you yesterday. You were upset upon hearing about the preacher's demise. I guess not all blacks are treated equally, huh? Said Thomas angrily. Mark, who now felt like he was being humiliated by his grandson, decided to fire back. The late Reverend was a nigger that I controlled. I do not give a damn about his death. I was angry because now I need another nigger preacher to help me transport the damn drugs. I have inventory that must be moved, and nothing can stop it. Plus, I know that crazy-ass nigger Bells was behind the Reverend's murder. Now I need to get his nigger ass sent back to jail for life, said Mark as he stabbed the red bandana lying in front of him with a pen. As Mark was talking to his grandson and his daughter, he did not notice Bells, who was standing behind him with a gun pointed towards his head. Mark kept on talking until he noticed Thomas's eyes get larger and larger. Suddenly, an intense fear took over Mark as he realized that someone was behind him. He also knew that someone could very possibly be Bells. Bells, who had had enough of all the chatter, finally decided to pull the trigger, instantly killing Mark in a heartbeat. Mary started screaming at the top of her lungs and began crying, making Bells point his gun in her direction. "Shut up, bitch, if you know what's good for you. Both of you," said Bells. Mary, who was still hot in the face, somehow managed to calm herself down, as if she knew this day would come. Thomas, on the other hand, remained paralyzed. Bells, who had no conflict with either of the remaining people in the room, decided to walk out, leaving behind two scared and confused individuals. As soon as Bells left, Thomas quickly called the police and explained what had just happened. This was truly a dark day for the Williamses, as their fate had finally caught up to them. 2 weeks had now passed, and Thomas's story about the community was printed in his newspaper. As the story gained national coverage, social media soon followed, and this horrifying story about a little town in the South was now trending across the country. Many around the country were upset to find out that white supremacy and the totalitarian government were responsible for destroying black communities currently. Thomas's story spawned pro-black movements all over the world. African Americans were determined to support their businesses, enforce higher education, and unite on political issues. Thomas, on the other hand, was receiving death threats. Nevertheless, he was pleased that his story made such a difference in perspective for so many people. One evening, as Thomas was leaving the building of the newspaper he worked for, he was approached by a familiar face. The only difference being, she was now in a wheelchair. "Dee Dee, what happened to you?" asked Thomas to the wife of Loco Blue and the mother of Jamal Blue.
I hope you're happy with the outcome of your story. You got fame and recognition, but at what cost? Look at how many people died because of your damn story,
complained Dee Dee as she looked at Thomas with pain in her eyes. "Dee Dee, to be fair, all this happened because of you. You were the one who decided to have an affair with your man's best friend. Then you married him and had kids with the guy while your man was in prison. Now what do you think was going to happen once he got out of prison? Asked Thomas.
You don't know shit about my situation. Mims was kicking my ass daily while we were together. Blue was there for me during these beatings, but could not do anything to stop it for fear of his own life. Once that monster went to prison, Blue stepped up and took care of me.
Cried Dee Dee as tears rolled down her eyes.
It's inevitable when two people are around each other for long periods. Sex will become a factor. We heard that Mims was going crazy in prison when he heard the news that Blue and I had gotten married and were now having kids. Shit! Blue had to join the Crips for protection,
said Dee Dee. I know the story, Dee Dee, but you didn't answer my question. How'd you end up in a wheelchair? Asked Thomas.
Mims's girl. She was pissed when she heard that he was murdered, and for some reason that bitch thought I had something to do with it. She waited for me to leave my house and ambushed me from behind. She shoots me in the back and both my knees. And as you can see, I can never walk again. All because of your damn story,
said Dee Dee as she pointed towards her lifeless legs. Again, Dee Dee, my story had nothing to do with your situation. The wheels were already set in motion without me getting involved. Besides, the community is now drug-free. Now, if you would, please excuse me. I'm late for an appointment, said Thomas as he started making his way towards his car.
You a stupid son of a bitch. Do not think for a second since your old man died that the community is safe and drug-free. There's always someone looking to take advantage of the black community,
screamed Dee Dee. Thomas, who was now in his car, began driving towards the direction of his apartment. As he was making his way home, he turned on the radio and heard a new car dealership advertisement. Dick Kelly's car dealership with over 500 cars to choose from at our location. We accept bad credit, no credit, and no job, no problem. To us, everyone is approved, said the voiceover man reading the advertisement in an enthusiastic tone. Upon hearing this, Thomas began thinking that there are not nearly as many people in town to buy so many cars. Therefore, how could such a business model operate in such a town? As Thomas was driving by, he noticed a police motorcycle flashing his hazard lights and leading a convoy of trucks. The man riding the motorcycle suddenly slid down his aviators and winked at Thomas. Officer Kelly? Said Thomas as he realized it was Officer Kelly, the same man that worked for his grandfather at the funeral home. Officer Kelly was now working for the new car dealership called Dick Kelly Nissan. Hey there, sport. Cool story you got published. I read it over my early morning coffee, said Officer Kelly with a smile on his face. Thomas, who was speechless for a moment, finally replied, Thanks, officer. Officer Kelly quickly replied to him, But now you know this shit will never stop. Someone will always destroy this community with drugs and crime. Hell, our great country is built on it, said Officer Kelly as he raised his aviators and rode off on his bike. Thomas was left behind shocked and disheartened as he finally gave in to the situation and thought to himself that no one in this community has unclean hands. Is there hope for this little town? Is everybody unclean? Who will now try to take control of the drug market? Stay tuned as we address these questions in part 2 of this trilogy.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you had fun or picked up anything from this episode, please assist us by hitting the like, subscribe, and notification buttons. You can also comment and share our content. These small things really help our channel and mean a lot to us. Also, special thanks to our Patreon supporters. You guys are the heartbeat of this channel, and we can't thank you enough for being so generous. If you would like to join our Patreon community, please click on the link below. You can contribute as little as $5 per month. You can get all kinds of perks. You can even buy merchandise of your favorite characters at our shop store. Click on the link provided below. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, remember you are cherished by us. So be kind and know that we consider you as family.